So thank you very much for your ideas. Now let's start with two skills for this session. We're going to talk about speaking skills and listening skills this session. What's the difference between IELTS and TOEFL? I know some of you have experience for IELTS. So as you know, the speaking test is face-to-face with an examiner. So it's in a different time and different place. So there's the examiner and the candidate. It takes about 11 to 14 or at most 15, but usually 13, 14 minutes. Usually it's on a different time and different day. Usually it's a different day, but it's possible you take the exam on the same day. Also, it's your choice, but mostly it's a different day. And features a range of different accents speaking English, and the score will be determined by a single. Only the examiner gives you the score. Let me show you one exam here. So here, as you said, it has 3 parts: part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 consists of different questions, but general questions. Part 2, it's a task card or a cue card. So the examiner gives you a card. You have 1 minute to think, take notes, and paper, of course, and pen. So you can take notes in a minute. After that, you have to talk up to 2 minutes, up to the time that the examiner stops you. But the thing is, you have to cover all the questions. It's all around one topic. For example, here said, describe a very difficult task that you succeeded in doing as part of your work or studies. So this is a topic. Then they have to answer what task you did, why this task was very difficult, how you work on the task, and explain how you felt when you had successfully completed the task. So even if you don't finish in 2 minutes, mostly the examiner asks you, so how did you feel? They ask you further questions. Part 3, it's like a discussion type of topics. So it's you comparing, and you have to explain something, you have to talk about your experience, and there are subjective topics, and like talking about the difficult jobs or personal or career success, and comparing your generation with last generations. And you need to use a wide range of vocabulary and also grammar. So let me share with you guys here. Let me share with you the descriptor. This is the public band descriptor for speaking. The one that the examiner has, as we discussed, it's top secret, it's not out. So it's only with the examiner. So 9, which is the highest score, the speaker, see, it goes on for the evaluations on 4 features: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. So band score 9, it means speaks fluently with only rare repetition or self-correction, no hesitation, and speaks coherently with fully appropriate cohesive features. And he or she, the candidate, can develop topics fully and appropriately. For lexical resource, uses vocabulary with full flexibility and even uses idioms naturally. For grammatical range and accuracy, uses a full range of structures naturally and appropriately, and different structures, okay, like native speakers. Also, the fourth feature is pronunciation, full range of pronunciation features, and flexible in using the features, and it is understandable, of course. This is 9. Even if you get no communication, you're silent, you get 1. Yes. Okay, you get 1. You can have the descriptor copy. Let me share with you the link so you can have it. Chat box. Here. You can have it, this descriptor, to know more. Now, let's talk about TOEFL. Okay. Just in IELTS, I want to mention something. In IELTS, it's very important to know that when you work with your students, don't focus only on vocabulary and grammar part. Of course, it's 50%, but it's not the only part. Pronunciation is also important. Fluency is also very, very important, talking with no hesitation. We're going to have another webinar on teaching IELTS and practicing TOEFL. So we will discuss how to practice vocabulary, grammar, and how to practice fluency with your students. We're going to practice more. Good. So what about, what about TOEFL? Actually, it's online, so it's only the examiner. But the group of 6 reviewers will give you the mark. Okay, so score will be determined by a group of 6 reviewers. And your answer will be recorded. Even in IELTS, there's one examiner, but they record your answer. Because maybe later you have an objections and say, no, it's not my band score. So the other examiner listen to the recording and give you the score. But for TOEFL, they're going to be a group. So the answer will be recorded. It takes about 20 minutes. And it's a part of the test. So it's always on the same day as the rest of the exam. And 90, as I told you, 90% is with American accent. The teachers is American speakers. Good. Let me share with you the descriptor for TOEFL. So here we go. So as you see, speaking rubrics, TOEFL IBT. Let me share with you the link. Chat. There you go. Okay. So, here is a sample. Let me send with you the sample of the exam to copy. Then I get to the descriptor. So you can have the sample as well. Share. Okay. Speaking question 1. So you will now be asked to give your opinion about the topic. You give yourself 15 seconds to prepare. You can take notes. You have paper and pen. Then you start recording. Click on the recording, and for 45 seconds, you have to answer to these questions. Okay, so 15 seconds preparation time, 45 seconds response time. Here is a sample question. Some people enjoy taking risks and trying new things. Others are not adventurous. They're cautious and prefer to avoid danger. Which behavior do you think is better? So you have to develop your ideas. You have to give reasons, examples. And type 2 is, it's like passage, conversation, and question. So the university is making a change in the courses. Read the article. Give yourself 45 seconds. So in 45 seconds, you have to, the candidate needs to read the article. Okay. And then the answer to the questions. Then they start to answer to the questions here. The woman expresses her opinion of the university's plan, state her opinion, and explain the reason she gives for holding that opinion. So they have to read this, then they read the, they listen to person interviewing about what's written here. After that, so they have 30 seconds to talk for 60 seconds. They have 30 seconds to prepare to talk for 60 seconds. And here is the questions. So they have to give reason why she gave that opinion. So it's based on understanding of the context, even the conversation, the listening part. Okay, integrated this. Another question is based on integrated speaking practice. So they have to respond to these questions. They have to read something. They read this part, and then again they listen to a lecture. A professor gave a lecture. They listen to the lecture. They have 30 seconds after listening. They have 30 seconds to get prepared to answer to a question. For example, here said, using the example of peanut bug and morpho butterfly, explain the concept of revealing coloration. So it becomes a bit more difficult. Always it starts from easy to difficult. And they have to talk about 60 seconds. Here in this test, it gives you the answers with a sample of answers as well. Question 2, it's again academic. It's lecture and questions. Okay, so they listen to the lecture. Then they have 20 seconds to get prepared for 60 seconds talk. Answer to this. Using the points and example from the lecture, explain the 2 pricing strategies described by the professor. They already listened to that part. You have a chance to take notes. And here is the sample answer. So it goes like this. They listen to some part and then they give the answer. Also, there's a question to give your opinion. And the topic is familiar to what they have already listened to previous questions. So 15 seconds, they read the questions. You have 15 seconds to get prepared, and then 45 seconds answering. So you can see the timer on the corner on the screen. Here it said some people think it is more fun to spend time with friends in a restaurant or cafes. Others think it's more fun to spend time with friends at home. Which do you think is better? Explain why. When it said explain why, it means you have to give reason. Again, in this pamphlet, you can see the sample answer. Question 6, you have a passage and conversation, then again the questions. So they read the passage, they listen, and then they answer to the topic and lecture the same way. So there are some samples here. But how do you get marks? So how's your general description? So it means the response fulfills the demands of the task. You fully answer to the task. Delivery, well-paced follow. So in the time when it's a 45 seconds, you can answer the whole thing. And it should be understandable. Minor difficulties with pronunciation, you get 4, which is the highest. And language use, okay, it should be effective use of grammar and vocabulary. And topic development, how well you develop the topic when you give reasons. These are the features for speaking in TOEFL. So it's from 0 means no talking. 1 is elementary. 4 is the highest. This is for speaking rubric. Of course, they have for writing as well. And I share with you the link so you can read the description for each. So that goes for speaking, the difference between IELTS and TOEFL. The other one is for, the other skill is listening. So in IELTS, it takes about, the very first part in written exam is listening. It takes around 30 minutes. And there are 4 parts. There are 4 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. It used to be sections, but now it is parts. In part 1, they listen to conversations. In part 2, there's a monologue. And again, in part 3, conversation of 3 people or 4 people. And part 4, again, monologue. There are various types of questions. And there are 40. Yes, there are 40 questions here. For TOEFL, it's 40 to 60 minutes. I have the sample of IELTS, I guess. Give me a minute. Yeah. So part 1 is a social topic, 2 speakers talks. Part 2, again, social topic, but it's a monologue, like talking about environment, or talking about local institutes, social matters, traffic, like this. Part 3, academic, 3 or 4 people, they're talking about projects, they're talking about their university schools issues. And part 4, it's a monologue. It's like in giving a lecture or talk about a matter like environmental problems or different kinds of animals or specific subject in university. And in written form, because recently, it's almost 2 or 3 years, we have the computer form as well. But in written format, 30 minutes you listen with no pauses, and you have a chance to listen once. Then 10 minutes to transfer. So totally 40 questions and 40 minutes. But you can tick on the test booklet, then you have 10 minutes to transfer the answer into this answer sheet. It is important to mention to your students, they check the number of the questions while they're transferring the answer into the answer sheet. And it's part 1 to part 4. The easiest is part 1, and many people said part 3 and 4 are the most difficult. Yes, I do agree with you. It's unfair to listen once. Yeah, I know. In TOEFL, you have a chance to listen twice. Yes. Okay. 75% it's British, but you can hear a variety English accent. So the question types are different. They have a flowchart completion, multiple choice, summary completion. So they have to complete the summary of what they have heard. It usually goes to part 4. Sentence completion, they have part of the sentence. So they have to complete, the examiner has to complete the rest of the sentence. Labeling, so there are some pictures, they have to label the diagram or map. Short answer questions, Dictation and spelling is very important. If the answer is correct, but the spelling is wrong, you won't get the mark. Yes, you will lose the mark. And classifications, just ordering. So there are different types of questions. That's for IELTS. In TOEFL IBT, to measure the ability of your understanding of a conversation and lectures in English, it starts from basic comprehension to more challenging. So again, it's easy to difficult. And even it asks you about the attitude and degree of certainty and connecting information. Okay? So they listen to lectures or conversation. It usually happens on a campus-based language. So it usually happens in university, what's going on in a university. 3 to 4 lectures or classroom discussion, each 3 to 5 minutes. Then it follows with 6 questions per lecture. Then they listen to 2 to 3 conversation, and each 3 minutes, 5 questions per conversation. And you can take notes. You can take notes. It takes about 41 to 57 minutes to complete the sections. I have the link, so I'm going to share with you the link to see the sample. So the lectures are all academic, and here is a sample, like read all the questions. So they read the question, then they play it, they choose the answer, mostly multiple choice. And then they have a chance to listen twice, listen again and correct themselves. So the scale score is 0 to 30. 0 to 30. Let me share with you the link. Give me a minute. So here's the link. So we can see the sample. There you go. So here is a link. Yep, you have the sample now. Okay, can you see it? Yeah? Good. Let me share with you the link. Here's the link. Okay, guys, here's the link. So see, the examinee listen, they click on it, and they listen to the recording. Then here are the questions. See, multiple choice. You can take notes and they answer it. But you have a chance to listen again. Again, click and listen to it. So you have a chance to listen to it 2 times. This is a free test, so you can try it by yourself as well. But it's important, here is test, a different test than TOEFL, free TOEFL test, sample test, okay? The important thing is you practice with your students how to take notes. It's important that your students practice enough to understand or to diagnose what are the keywords, or what are the key features to take notes, because it's almost impossible to take notes of everything. So one strategy could be, before listening, they go through the test, they go through the questions, they read the instruction and know what exactly they need to look for. They underline the keywords, for each questions. If there are multiple choice, define the differences between the choices, circle the differences, but they have to be fast enough because it's not a long time. It's just a few minutes. A few minutes. They go through it very quickly. Even they take notes for themselves. So be careful. This is the main part, or this is the answer I need to look for. While they are listening, they need to focus on the listening. They need to focus on the listening and take notes based on what they found as key features in the questions. But reading the questions and listening to the recording at the same time, it makes it very difficult and challenging because you have to concentrate on both, which is very difficult. So better you practice with your students that they read fast, they understand the key features or the keywords of the questions, and they understand what are they looking for. Then underline helps them a lot, or circle around the keywords. Then while they are listening to the audio, they only take notes from the audio. Later, they have time to go through the notes of the audio and go through the question to find the answer. The good point for TOEFL, they have a chance to listen again, but unfortunately, IELTS just once. But there's no negative answer. I mean, there's no negative mark. There's no negative mark. Even by chance, I always said to my students, answer it or choose an option, because there's no negative marks. Also, it is important while they are taking notes, it should be in the right order. It should be right order. Sometimes their notes are very confusing. They don't know what did they write. Okay, it should be organized and in right order. Some students said, because they are foreign students, what if I take notes in my own or my mother tongue? Nobody cares in what language you take notes. The thing is, you have to answer the questions. You need to find the correct answer. So that is the main point, okay? So that's the difference between speaking and listening in TOEFL and IELTS. We're going to discuss reading and writing, also how to practice vocabulary and grammar with your students next webinar. But right now is the time to ask your questions. If you have any questions or you want to share anything based on your experience or experience in teaching IELTS or TOEFL or any other international exam, please share it with the group. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for ideas. Listening to podcasts. Listening to podcasts, very helpful to improve your students' listening. You started from short podcasts. Then they have to listen to longer podcasts because they have to concentrate for 30 minutes. Yes, you're right. I do agree. Speaking is much easier because we practice speaking a lot, no matter what skills you teach your students, but because you always speak in English, so definitely they practice speaking more. But even if they listen to podcasts, they become more fluent and accurate in their speaking. So, receptive skills, listening more, better speaking, better pronunciation. Why they're talking to you, will focus on their stress and intonation. That's the weak point of foreigners because they use their mother tongue intonation or their mother tongue stress words. So that they need to listen to native speakers to catch it, okay, to catch it. But you start with short podcasts, then to longer, like TED Talks, longer ones. And while they're listening to podcasts as an assignment, they need to take notes because they have to practice how to find the key points in the talk. Then next session or the session after, when they get to the class, ask them about the main features of the podcast, not the whole thing. Don't ask them for the summary. They shouldn't talk about every detail of the podcast, but the main features. Okay, the main features. So it's good to ask them to take notes and then come back to the class and talk about it. Then you start to ask them questions. So in this way, you help them to understand if they miss some parts. So ask some questions and say, I want you to go and listen again and find the answer. So they understood in this way, they can understand, oh, I missed some parts. They become more, they're gonna concentrate better. They're gonna concentrate better. And they become more conscious. How well they have to listen, okay? And they have to focus on the listening. So start with short, then longer. Because in the exam, for example, like IELTS, they have to concentrate for 30 minutes. For 30 minutes. And they listen to different speakers with different accent, not only American. So that's why I recommend TED Talks, because speakers are from different parts of the world with different accents. So it's good to listen to different accents. Even listening to the news helps them a lot. So American news, British news, Australian news, Indian news in English, or different parts of the world. Just get used to different accents. Thank you very much for your ideas and sharing your points. So if you have any question with your assignment, it's a time to ask.